filed a claim today against the city of Antioch regarding the death of Angelo Quinto. We've done so under circumstances that we think is particularly horrific. Horrific in the sense that at this point in time, it should not be a situation where a person is laboring under mental distress and the police react to him in such a way that instead of taking care of it and reducing the tension, they immediately grab, throw the person, throw Mr. Quinto down, get on him. And really, the most tragic part of this is the George Floyd toll. All of you saw seen that on television at some point. And what you saw, what happened here, is the officers got on Mr. Quinto's neck with their knee and pressed down on it and flipped up his legs as well. So he almost had a boat position. And within 5 minutes, he essentially was dead. And that should not happen. It's tragic. The worst part of it, to me, there are several parts of it extraordinarily important, but Mr. Quinto had a basic fear of police, like many men do. He certainly had a fear of dying, and he had expressed these issues with his family on more than one occasion. And so when the police grabbed him from his mother's arm, he was cuddling him like a baby, holding him down because he wanted to be close and he didn't want to be left. They snatch him from her and then throw him down. But on the way down, he says, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." And they muttered some words like, "We're not going to kill you." But within moments they had. And so it's the mom, the family, the sister, his sister, they call for help because he was acting in a way that was kind of paranoid. There wasn't a real diagnosis, but he had had issues of depression before, and so they was concerned about it. But when the police arrived, they made no effort to de-escalate the situation. They immediately grabbed him from his mother's arms and immediately threw him down to the ground. And when they did that, of course, they put the knee on the back of his neck, and thereby, we now know, prevented him from breathing, and he literally was dead within 5 minutes. Dead within 5 minutes. Although the police apparently didn't know that, they allowed him to lay on the floor. He was not moving. Essentially, he was unconscious. He was comatose. And he was in that position for the next 3 days, where he never regained consciousness at all. So from my point of view, there are a lot of issues that are wrong here. The techniques applied by the officers, the failure to de-escalate, the jumping on the back of his neck with his foot, with their knee, holding him down in such a way that cut off his windpipe and asphyxiated, as far as we know. Although I must admit we have not received the pathology report or the toxicology report. We, in fact, ourselves had a second autopsy performed. We haven't got the results back from that. But given what we know, that we had a healthy young man in his mother's arms, the police grabbed him, they themselves, through the conduct that they engaged in, stuffed his life out of him. That, to me, is a violation not only of his civil rights, but it's against the violations of humanity, frankly. And at this day and age, it's hard to accept as legitimate police conduct. So our family here, and I'm glad all of you here in support. Many of you I've seen before, many of you I've been involved with on a daily basis. Some of you have had cases very similar to this. We're involved in another case down in San Diego. This is exactly like this. And that is where a person needs help, and instead of giving them help, you kill the person. That's unconscionable. So that's why we're here. And the family is traumatized. And maybe you do or not know, but this took place in the presence of the mom and the sister. So all of you, many of you obviously are moms, you can appreciate the pain that the mom is feeling in witnessing her son being snatched from her bosom and thrown to the ground and die in her presence by the police officer's conduct. And so we filed claims on behalf of the mom, on behalf of the sisters, and the wrongful death against Mr. Quinto. And so that's where we are right now. We are going to move forward. You can see the part that we have here that says, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. And it reminds you obviously of Eric Garner, who said, I can't breathe. This is even more dramatic than that, because he said, please don't kill me, before his breath was taken away. And when he's on the ground, on the floor, in the house, in the bedroom, when they snatched him, put him down, when they finally turned him over, blood was flowing through his mouth. This was a healthy person before, no physical problems, and within moments, his life is gone. That is why we are here and why we're so traumatized by it. Many of you know about a number of other cases that have taken place. This certainly falls within one of the as egregious a case you can have, not because the physical conduct was brutal, like we have in cases where people have been shot unnecessarily or beaten to death. This is a situation where it was more subtle than that. It was more of the George Floyd, where they put the foot, his knee on the back of his neck and pressed down for about 5 minutes and snuffing his life out. And then fainted, ignorance of it all, as if they had nothing to do with it, saying it was a medical emergency of some kind. The medical emergency was created after they killed him, and they didn't really know that he was dead yet. So that is part of what we're dealing with here. I want you to see some of the pictures here. The family will talk a little bit about him as a young man. These are his presents, not open, from Christmas. These are his presents. So he was a wonderful, loving young boy, young man. As you can see, his family loved him. All of them are here. Many of them are here. And this was his presence that hasn't been opened. So the trauma and the damage that's taken place in his family is immeasurable. Many of you know what that's like, but it clearly is immeasurable. Okay, before I take questions though, what I'm going to do is Ben, who's an associate on the case, will talk. Then we'll have the family members talk. Some community people will talk, and I will answer questions. Or yes, okay? So before I take any questions, let's finish up the program. Ben, thank you.
So as you've heard,
Can you give us your name? Your full
yes,
name?
sure. My name is Ben Nissenbaum, and I work with Mr. Burris, and I've worked there for a long time, as many of you know. So as you've heard, Angelo was suffering from a mental health emergency, and that's what caused the police to be called. But there were 2 emergencies that happened here. The first was Angelo's mental health emergency, then the police, and the police became a medical emergency for Mr. Quinto. Mr. Quinto was suffering a mental health emergency, and the police killed him. As Mr. Burris said, they snuffed the life out of him. And we know that. We've had our own examination done. We're very comfortable that that happened. All the indicators of an asphyxiation death appear to be present. So we are deeply concerned that the city of Antioch not only has not really addressed this case, but at the training that's involved here, whether the officers followed it, apparently they did not. We also have video of Angelo in life, and you'll see the thoughtful young man that he was. This was not a situation, it does not appear to be a situation where drugs were involved. And even if they were, this is a situation about saving somebody's life, and then you kill them.
Right.
How is that possible? You know, police need to do a better job than this. And sometimes you hear police come out and say, oh, well, it was excited delirium. He suffered from some syndrome that doesn't even really exist in reality. Well, every time they say that, they do a disservice to their own job, because it is a direct contradiction to learning how to do their job better. Instead of accepting responsibility, they keep being ignorant. We can't allow that anymore.
Thank you. You get respect for that person. What life is involved in. So now what I'd like to do is start having some of the family. The first person I want to bring up is his sister, who was also present in this month. Isabella, she's 18.
Don't really know what to say, but my family is not unique. This incident is not unique. It's happened to a lot of people. We've seen the tradition that the officers took killed people before. And my mom and I trusted them too much because violence and brutality that we saw did not come in the form of guns or blatant beating. It came in the form of excessive restraint and a dangerous tactic used to calm people. I have to hold that on my finger. Calm people. We want. I want to bring him back, but if we can't do that, we want justice in any way we can get it. We want a new number to call. Someone who can help us with mental health crises and other related domestic incidents. And we want to question the police hold that they used and hopefully get it banned here.
We're here with you. We're with you.
He was present on the bed while it happened. He said she trusted the police.
Yes,
and
I trusted them.
Heard her son say, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." And he did it anyway.
Hi, my name is Robert Collins. I'm proud to say that Angelo called me dad. Angelo was a very dynamic and interesting person. He had so many different interests. He would always try to get us to play the latest video game that he was looking at. He loved to fish and scuba dive, and would try to get us to see graffiti in a different way. He was always questioning the way we saw things and trying to share his passion for many things. There was a real soft side to Angelo. He was particularly good with kids, where he always had a smile on his face, endless patience for them, little kids especially, and he loved animals. He rescued our now 14-year-old cat from a garbage can when she was 2 weeks old. Named her Quinto, but she thought it was a male, and loved her ever since. Our dog Toto, is Angelo who spoiled him arguably way too much. He had a lot to live for. When Isabella called 911, she was looking for help. She had no idea that she was engaging in a system that's broken and unable to regulate itself and investigate itself. A system that, although there are good cops, of course, a system that often treats poor people and people of color, either native, black, Asian, Latino, as if they are guilty first and then have to be found innocent later. A system that, when there's a misstep, tends to cover up itself and come in on itself and begin to change the facts and obfuscate the facts and prevent truth from coming out, to preserve the status quo and to prevent changes from happening. What we're asking for sometimes, and hopefully in this case we won't have, hasn't happened yet, but won't have the POA after all that coming in and then threatening politicians with any changes that could come. Even when some of those changes are changes that in other jurisdictions have been known as just best practices, things that are not revolutionary, but in more progressive cities have worked and have worked well. So we need to move to a place where those things are actually taken care of. The family is really asking for a few things here. Number one is we'd like to know if the police had body cams and if they were turned on. And if they didn't have body cams, I think the question for the community is, why not? And if we do pass a law that says they have to have body cams, they should not be able to turn them off. Number two is we're still waiting for blood samples to run a toxicology report. I saw one in the hospital originally that showed nothing, but we haven't gotten the blood samples, as far as I know, to be able to do the second part. And we'd like to know who the officers were, what their records were, and if that's something that we have a problem, that's an ongoing problem, or if that's a one-time thing and we can solve it through training or what have you. You know, ultimately, Angelo's life would be lost in vain if we cannot work with others. And I want to say thank you to all of you who are here, other families that are in a similar situation as us. It has been amazing to be a part of this club of people who have lost, and I had no idea how many people that encompassed. But thank you for being here. Ultimately, Angelo's life will have been lost in vain if we cannot work towards some reform so that others do not have to face the same situation. I would just like to say that Isabella asked many times on that fateful night of December 23rd, half an hour before Noche Buena, but it's a Filipino holiday, she asked the officers, a couple times at least, what number should I have called? Is there a better number to call? And they answered, all of them answered, no, you did the right thing. That is the only number you can call. So the answer was no. But I think as Cesar Chavez would say, sí se puede.
Right.
We can do it. We can make that answer be yes. There can be a number you can call. It can be something that is staffed with enough resources so that they can come out 24/7, you know, all the time. Other jurisdictions have done it. Eugene has done it. Denver's done it. I don't know why we have to be that regressive. And so it's not an anti-cop thing. It's about, you know, it makes sense for the city of Antioch to have a police force that actually works well. It's cheaper.
Right.
It's very expensive to do things wrong. It's also not effective. So the last thing I would say is that as a community, I think what I see is what we're asking for is that instead of subjugation and constraining somebody and dehumanizing them, what we're really asking for is a change that respects each and every one of us as a human being and as a member of the community, and that we go beyond the idea of domination as a way of policing, dominating the subject, to respecting that subject and showing respect for the community you serve and putting those interests of the community above the personal interests of the officers that are serving. That's what it means to provide public service. And so for that, we will strive.
Thank you, thank you.
Right.
Before I take